this is guitarist Denis Taaffe, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Bargain Bin Gear. And in this episode, we're going to look at a homemade, do-it-yourself 2x12 cabinet. And we'll take a look at it here shortly. But basically the idea was somehow I got I was given a Vox AD50V 2x12 combo amp. However, the amp part didn't work at all, so it's kind of a throwaway amp. So, well, I thought it would make for a really cool 2x12 cabinet, right? And so basically, I mean, it didn't have a back to it at all, you know. And once you took the amp parts out, which I did, right, the electronics out, it made it pretty light and pretty reasonable to carry around for a 2x12, you know. And so then I made a back panel with something called a plug and play. And the plug and play basically gave me the wiring for two 8-ohm speakers, which it had. Okay, they were Vox speakers, 8-ohm speakers. And the nice thing is that would allow you to have a 16-ohm mono cabinet, a 4-ohm mono cabinet, or 8-ohm stereo cabinet, or 8-ohm mono, but only out of one speaker. So that little panel, about $25 at Amazon, I think. And then it was a matter of putting a back panel on and carving out space for that plug and play jack. And I did that originally, and it sounded okay, except I made the wood so flimsy that it was really fragile and would buzz constantly like crazy. So eventually I had it reinforced, you know, and also plug up the hole at the top where the electronics used to be. And let's take a look at that. Okay, so here's the Vox 212. And it used to be a Vox AD50VT amplifier. And I've got it set on a 212 cabinet right now, just so I can show you this. So it's got the metal grill, which is very nice right there. And there you can see the two 12-inch speakers, and they're actually Vox speakers, you know. And it turns out they're actually pretty darn good, nice speakers. And so it's got that metal grill to protect the speakers, which is very nice right here. Okay, and now let me show you. If we go to the top here, these were the vents for the actual amp. Now, when I got it, of course, the amp was all messed up, so I just removed the guts of the amp, and the tone controls were back here, the back of the amp here. And so I had this little piece of wood, right, because there was a hole right there. And so this is actually a piece of Tolexed wood, right? And now it's basically covering that hole. It's not perfect, you know, but usually you'll have an amp head on top of this here. You got a nice handle there, but this is very solid. You see that? So it covers it up pretty well. So actually for 212, you know, it's pretty convenient size. Alright, now let's get to the important part, and this is it. Okay, now there's the back of it. Right there. And this is just a little piece of wood. And that's my handy doing originally. And it was so thin, right? I had forgotten totally about it. I was just so excited to try this. That I got this real thin piece of wood, and it fits in there just fine. The problem is it was so thin. I mean, one good kick and you'd go right through it. And the problem is it buzzed like crazy, right? When you're actually using it as a 2x12 cab. All right. Now, so you can see here, it's not exactly perfect, but what I did, I had a guy come and reinforce all this stuff, so made it super secure. And here behind this, right, and I mean this is just a flimsy piece of sheeting, really, and I had spray painted it black, and now with all these screws and things, it's got this big 3/4 inch plywood behind it, right? And this is screwed into that, and now it's super solid. It added to the weight of the cab, but made all the difference in the world sound-wise, because now you get a really nice sound out of it, no buzzing and that kind of thing. And here's what I wanted to use was this. The plug-and-play jack panel right there, because this amp had two 8-ohm Vox speakers, right? And with the plug-and-play jack, right, and it comes with the wiring that you need. It's got 3 jacks, and what those are is you've got a 16 ohm or 4 ohm mono or 8 ohm stereo. You can also do 8 ohm mono, but it only comes out of one speaker. And so here I've got basically the bases covered as far as using it with different amps and things, right? And this was about, I think the jack panel is about $25 on Amazon, right? But it basically turns it into a stereo cabinet or a 16 ohm or 4 ohm cabinet, you know? So that makes it very worthwhile to use with different amps and things. So he did a nice job, you know. I didn't want to spend too much money and time on it cosmetically, you know. I mean, I wanted it to be decent, you know, so it's not exactly perfect. Like here, it's kind of sticking out a little bit, but that's not the big deal because it is solid as can be. You know, now it's a really solid cabinet. You're not going through that anytime soon, and it stopped all the buzzing and things. So we're going to take a listen to it here, right? And so basically I turned a broken amp that was kind of useless into a useful 2x12. And what's nice about it is, you know, here's a Black Star 1x12 HT Club 40, and it's about the same size really, and this is a 2x12. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to play it through this little Fender Super Champ X2. Has a little 10-inch speaker, and then we're going to play it through the Vox and see what kind of difference it makes. And I'll tell you, before I had the guy really solidify that with a bunch of screws in the plywood and things make it really solid, it didn't sound all that great. As I said, it was real buzzy, but you seemed to lose a lot of low end and things, you know. I don't know if it was because it was escaping out of here, because this was just a big hole before, you know. Alright, so we'll take a listen to it here. Okay, here we go. Now here I'm just playing just straight into the little Fender X2 with a 10-inch speaker. No effects or anything, just straight into the amp. So that's the Fender X2, and now we're going to try it with the Vox cabinet. Okay, so what I've done here is just unplug the internal speaker and plugged in the Vox cabinet. Let's hear if it makes a difference. Okay, so much fuller, bigger sound. And keep in mind, this is off the ground, you know, so you get more bass, I guess, if you know, set it on the ground. Alright, so I've got it, the Vox cabinet on the ground here. Let's hear that. So you get a much bigger, fuller sound. Okay, now I've got some effects from the pedal board, some reverb. Okay, so here I have it in stereo, in combination with a Supro. And so yeah, much bigger sound there. So there you go. there's a kind of the do-it-yourself 2x12 cabinet. A lot better than having it sitting around, just taking up space, or now it's actually usable. And in a way it's very satisfying too, to be able to use it. And those speakers are well protected. I would say a lot more than the, a grilled cloth cabinet. And I'd highly recommend that. If you have a broken amp, you may want to consider, making it a cabinet. Now, granted, you could put in better speakers and so on and so on, like Celestion, whatever's. But, of course, that's going to cost more, right? I mean, I've got $25 in that thing, so, and I mean, I think that's reasonable. I didn't want to sink another $200, in some really quality speakers, especially when these come really, really close. It's certainly usable. In fact, I did a little loop recording, and I have it running in stereo with a Supro amp, and I mean, that's kind of $1,000 amp, and this is running a little, $300 X2 Fender Super Champ X2 15-watt tube amp, with the $25 2x12, and holds its own, certainly. Now, if I had anything to mention here, if you plan on doing something like this, you get a reasonable thickness of wood. Don't do like I did and get a little flimsy wafer board, where you could kick right through it. It just, it affects the tone, and buzzes like crazy, and is very fragile. But if you use, 3/4 plywood or something like that, you're fine. And make sure that it's screwed down well to avoid any buzzing or that kind of thing. And definitely, I highly recommend that plug-and-play panel if you're using 8-ohm speakers. Just to give you a variety of speakers, you don't have to mess around with wiring it different ways, It's kind of already done for you, and includes the speaker wire, and the little ends for it. So basically, it really is plug-and-play. Definitely worthwhile. And in fact, I wish more amps and cabinets came with something similar. Now, obviously, to get a stereo cabinet, you have to use 2 speakers. But, so there you go. Is it as nice as a production cabinet? It can be, within reason, I think. Now, depending on the price point, I would think that an orange 2x12, would definitely sound better, I would think. On the other hand, there's a huge cost difference, Basically, for $25, you're just not going to go wrong, So again, if you've got a broken amp or cabinet and you've got some speakers laying around, definitely making your own cabinet comes in really handy. Alright, very good. See you next time. Bye.